Did you know that one of the most infamous tyrants in history wasn't born a monster, but was meticulously crafted into one, like a statue carved from unwilling marble? What if I told you that behind the tales of madness and excess, there was first a story of a boy trapped in a cage made not of iron bars, but of gold, ambition, and a mother's terrifying love? Imagine for a moment you are there. You feel the warm Italian sun on your skin, a gentle breeze carrying the scent of cypress and distant wood smoke. You are standing on the cool marble floor of a sprawling villa overlooking the sea, a place of immense wealth and suffocating silence. This is the world you are born into, a world of whispered conversations in shadowed corridors and smiles that never quite reach the eyes. Few people understand how this story truly began, and even fewer grasp the psychological seeds that would one day bloom into madness. It's a tale that feels both ancient and strangely familiar, a reminder that the pressures of the past echo in our own time. Let me know in the comments where you're listening from tonight, and what time it is in your corner of the world. It's always nice to feel that we're all here together in this quiet space, ready to drift away. Your name, for now, is not Nero. You were born Lucius Domitius Ahenobarbus, a mouthful of a name that carries the weight of Roman nobility. The name Ahenobarbus itself means bronze beard, a quirky family trait passed down through generations of your father's line. Men known less for their statesmanship and more for their brutish tempers and spectacular cruelty. Your father is a man who, by his own admission, could never produce anything but what is detestable and disastrous. A comforting thought for a newborn. But it is not his lineage that will define you. It is your mother's. Your mother is Agrippina, the younger, and she is a force of nature. She is the great-granddaughter of the first emperor, Augustus himself, a direct link to the divine bloodline that holds the Roman world together. In her veins flows the ambition of generations, and from the moment you were born, she sees in you not a son, but a key to unlock the power that she, as a woman, can never hold directly. You are her masterpiece in the making, her living, breathing claim to the throne. Your childhood is not filled with the simple joys of play, but with the relentless pressure of grooming. Every lesson in rhetoric, every session with your tutors, is a calculated step in her grand design. You learn to ride, to read Greek, to command, but you never truly learn how to just be a boy. There's a strange and unsettling story whispered about your birth. It's said that Agrippina, ever the strategist, consulted with astrologers to divine your future. They supposedly told her two things: one, a triumph, the other, a horror. They predicted that you, Lucius, would one day rule the Roman Empire, but they also foretold that you would kill your own mother to keep that power. Agrippina's response, as legend has it, was chillingly simple: let him kill me, so long as he reigns. Think about that. Imagine growing up under the shadow of such a prophecy, knowing that the person who gives you life also views her own death at your hands as an acceptable price for your success. What does that do to your understanding of love, of sacrifice, of family? It twists it into something unrecognizable, a transaction where affection is measured in future glory. Historians still debate whether Agrippina's all-consuming drive was born of a twisted maternal devotion or simply her own unquenchable thirst for power. So you grow up in this gilded cage. You are surrounded by luxury, attended by slaves, educated by the finest minds, but you are profoundly alone. Your mother's affection is a reward for performance. Your father is distant and soon gone. You are a political asset, a piece on a chessboard so vast you cannot yet comprehend its rules. And deep within you, a seed is planted, a seed of resentment for the pressure, a craving for genuine praise, not for who you were destined to be, but for who you actually are. You are a boy who loves music, poetry, and the theater, passions considered unmanly and undignified for a future ruler. But in that world of art, you find a freedom, a form of expression that your gilded life denies you. For now, you are Lucius, a quiet, watchful boy, learning the terrifying lessons of power from the most ruthless teacher imaginable, your own mother. The stage is being set, the players are moving into position, and you are the star of a tragedy that has not yet begun. The world shifts around you. Your quiet life in the villa is a fading memory. Your mother, Agrippina, makes her move, and it is a masterpiece of audacity. After the death of his wife, the aging and easily manipulated Emperor Claudius is in need of a new bride. There are many candidates, beautiful and noble, but your mother has an advantage none of them possess: a ruthless will and a total lack of shame. She marries her own uncle, a union that borders on incestuous to Roman sensibilities, but she bulldozes through the scandal. You are now the emperor's stepson. The golden cage has just become the center of the Roman world. You watch her operate with a mixture of awe and fear. She is a whirlwind of calculated charm and cold ambition. She convinces Claudius, who already has a son of his own, the young Britannicus, to adopt you. This is the moment everything changes. You are no longer Lucius Domitius Ahenobarbus. In a grand public ceremony, you are given a new name, one that will echo through eternity: Nero Claudius Caesar Drusus Germanicus. You are now, officially, an heir to the throne. You were just a teenager, but your name now carries the weight of divinity and destiny. Your relationship with your mother intensifies, becoming a strange, suffocating dance. She is your shadow, your guide, your gatekeeper. Her face begins to appear on coins alongside the emperor's, an unprecedented honor for an empress, a clear signal to the world of who truly holds the power. She sits beside Claudius during public ceremonies, listening to envoys, offering her counsel. You are her great project, and she micromanages every aspect of your life. She arranges your marriage to Octavia, Claudius's daughter, further cementing your claim. She selects your tutors, two of the most brilliant men in Rome, the Stoic philosopher Seneca and the formidable military commander Burrus. They are meant to shape you into a perfect ruler, but they are also chosen because she believes she can control them. You feel a constant churning conflict. On one hand, she is the architect of your incredible fortune. Everything you have, everything you are about to become, you owe to her. There is a deep, psychological bond, a reliance on her strength and her vision. But on the other hand, there is a growing, suffocating pressure. Her love is conditional, her praise is a tool. You yearn to please her, yet you also begin to resent her total control. You see how she treats your stepbrother. He is the true son, yet he is pushed aside, ignored, a ghost at the imperial court. You see in him a reflection of your own powerlessness, a reminder that favor, even a father's, can be redirected. It's fascinating to know that Agrippina was one of the few Roman women of her time to write her own memoirs. She crafted her own story, detailing her sufferings, her triumphs, and justifying her actions for posterity. She was not just playing the game, she was writing the rulebook and the history of it at the same time. Historians debate to this day how much of our image of Agrippina as the ultimate puppet master comes from the truth, and how much is a result of her own brilliant, self-serving propaganda. Was she truly the shadow empress controlling every move, or was she just exceptionally skilled at making it seem that way? In this environment, you learn your most important lesson, not from Seneca's philosophy, but from your mother's actions. You learn that power is not given, it is taken. You learn that loyalty is a commodity, and that family ties can be weapons. Claudius grows older, his health begins to fail. You can feel the tension in the palace thickening, the air charged with anticipation. Agrippina has meticulously arranged all the pieces on the board. She has placed you, her son, her creation, just one square away from ultimate power. You are 16 years old, standing on the precipice of ruling the world, and you are completely, utterly, a product of your mother's deadly ambition. The final move of the game is about to be played, and everyone knows it. The end comes not with a bang, but with a poisoned mushroom. One evening, the Emperor Claudius is dead. The official story is natural causes. But no one in the palace believes it for a second. Your mother's plan has reached its conclusion. You are barely 17 years old. In the pre-dawn hours, Boris, the loyal commander of the Praetorian Guard, whisks you away to their barracks. He presents you to the soldiers, the true kingmakers of Rome, with promises of a generous bonus. Their cheers echo through the camp. You are hailed as Imperator. The Senate, faced with the army's decision, has no choice but to ratify your position. You walk into the Senate house a boy, and you walk out a god on earth. The first 5 years of your reign unfold like a dream. This period will become known to history as the Quinquennium Neronis, a golden age of stability and good governance. It feels as if a fresh breeze has swept through the corridors of power, clearing away the paranoia and corruption of previous reigns. You deliver a magnificent inaugural speech to the Senate, written by the brilliant Seneca, promising to restore their authority and respect their traditions. You pledge to end the secret trials and arbitrary executions that had become so common, and for a time, you keep these promises. Taxes are reformed to be less burdensome on the poor. Justice is administered fairly. The machinery of the vast empire runs smoothly, efficiently, and humanely. You are popular, celebrated, the embodiment of a hopeful new era. But are you the one driving this change? Or are you merely a passenger in your own imperial chariot? The real power seems to be held in a delicate balance between your two mentors, Seneca and Buros. They are the architects of this golden age. Seneca, the philosopher, guides your policy, crafting your public image, and whispering stoic wisdom in your ear. Buros, the soldier, manages the military and the bureaucracy with an iron hand, ensuring loyalty and order. Together, they form a perfect partnership of mind and muscle, shielding the empire from your youthful whims and, more importantly, from the influence of your mother. Agrippina is furious. She had expected to be the true ruler, the Empress Dowager pulling the strings of her puppet son. But Seneca and Buros skillfully and systematically sideline her. They treat her with public reverence, but privately block her every move. In a now famous incident, during a reception for ambassadors from Armenia, your mother attempts to assert her authority by walking up to sit beside you on the imperial platform, a move that would have shattered Roman protocol and signaled her as a co-ruler. The court holds its breath. A direct confrontation would be a disaster, but Seneca, quick-witted as ever, whispers in your ear. You immediately rise, walk down from the dais, and greet your mother, escorting her to a separate seat of honor. The crisis is averted through a show of filial piety, but the message is clear. She is your mother, not your equal. The power struggle is a quiet, vicious war fought in gestures and whispers. Historians still debate the true nature of your role during these years. Were you a willing partner in the reforms, a genuinely benevolent young man guided by wise counsel, or were you simply a distracted teenager, more interested in your private passions for music, chariot racing, and poetry than in the tedious day-to-day business of running an empire? You spend your nights incognito, roaming the streets of Rome with your friends, getting into brawls and adventures, a far cry from the dignified ruler you portray during the day. It's a strange double life. One of the lesser-known facts about your reign is your genuine interest in engineering and public works, even proposing an ambitious but ultimately failed project to build a canal across the Isthmus of Corinth. It reveals a mind that was curious and creative, not just decadent. So, you stand at the center of this golden age, a symbol of hope and renewal. The people love you, the Senate praises you, the empire is at peace. But is any of it real? Is this benevolent ruler your true self? Or is it a mask, crafted for you by Seneca and held in place by Buros? You enjoy the adoration, the freedom, the luxury. But beneath the surface, the boy who was raised in a golden cage is growing into a man who is beginning to tire of his advisors, and who is starting to feel the suffocating presence of his mother, not as a source of strength, but as a chain. The harmony of these first 5 years is beautiful, but it is deeply unnatural. And as the balance of power begins to shift, the Golden Age starts to tarnish the balance of power, so carefully maintained by Seneca and Burrus, is not shattered by a senator or a general. It is shattered by a woman. Her name is Papaja Sabina, and she is, by all accounts, the most beautiful, charming, and ambitious woman in Rome. You fall in love with her, or at least with the intoxicating idea of her. She is everything your wife, the quiet and virtuous Octavia, is not. She is witty, sophisticated, and unapologetically sensual, and she sees in you not just an emperor, but a man she can mold. Papaja begins to whisper in your ear. Her words are sweet poison. She mocks your submission to your mother. She questions why you, the master of the world, are still treated like a boy. How can you be a true emperor, she purrs, when your mother still holds the reins? Her influence becomes an obsession, feeding the part of you that has always chafed under Agrippina's control. The resentment that has been simmering for years now has a voice, an articulate and beautiful advocate for its darkest impulses. Your mother, sensing this new threat, fights back. She tries to charm you, she rages at you, she reminds you of everything she has done for you, but it's too late. The bond is broken. You are caught between two powerful, manipulative women, and the pressure is becoming unbearable. The idea takes root in your mind, a monstrous weed. Your mother has to go. But how do you eliminate a figure who is both your greatest obstacle and the architect of your entire life? How do you kill the woman who is a living symbol of your own legitimacy, the great-granddaughter of the divine Augustus? A simple poisoning is too obvious, too crude. It must be an accident, a tragic, unavoidable act of the gods. The plan you devise is so elaborate, so theatrical, it could only have come from your mind. It is a work of dark art. You invite Agrippina to a grand festival at your seaside villa in Baiae, a resort town on the beautiful bay of Naples. You feign a complete reconciliation, embracing her, dining with her, treating her with a warmth she hasn't felt from you in years. She is suspicious, but she allows herself to be convinced. After the lavish dinner, under a canopy of stars, you escort her to the pier. A special boat has been prepared to take her back to her own villa across the bay. This boat is an engineering marvel of malice. It has been designed with a lead-weighted canopy that, on cue, will collapse and crush her, while the boat itself is rigged to break apart and sink. You watch the boat glide out into the dark, calm water. You wait, and then you hear the sound of chaos. The mechanism is triggered, but the plan goes spectacularly wrong. The canopy collapses, but it is too slow and clumsy, only injuring Agrippina's shoulder as her loyal attendant throws herself in the way and is crushed instead. The boat itself fails to break apart properly. In the confusion, Agrippina, a strong swimmer, even in her middle age, slips over the side and swims to safety, eventually being picked up by a fishing boat. The news reaches you in your villa. She knows. She survived, and now she knows you tried to murder her. Historians still debate what was the final straw. Was it Papaja's relentless pressure, a genuine fear of a plot by Agrippina, or simply the explosive culmination of a lifetime of psychological manipulation? Whatever the reason, the moment of failure is a moment of pure terror for you. Panic sets in. Your artistic theatrical plan has failed, and you are left with a simple, brutal reality. There can be no more games. You summon your advisors. Seneca and Burrus, horrified, realize they cannot undo what has begun. You give the order to your fleet commander, Anicetus, the very man who designed the failed boat. He takes a group of sailors to Agrippina's villa. They surround her bed. She looks at them, not with fear, but with a defiant fury. Legend says she bared her stomach and cried, "Strike here, at the womb that bore this monster." When the deed is done, you are a changed man. The reports say you are haunted, that you wandered the palace at night, unable to sleep, convinced your mother's ghost was pursuing you. You have committed matricide, the most unnatural of all crimes. You have crossed a moral event horizon from which there is no return. The boy in the golden cage is gone forever, and in his place stands an emperor who has learned the terrible lesson that he can do anything, absolutely anything, and get away with it. The golden age is over, stained forever by the blood of your own mother. You feel a strange emptiness in the wake of your mother's death. You have won. You are free. The Senate, after a moment of stunned silence, officially congratulates you on surviving your mother's treasonous plot. The official story is that she tried to have you assassinated, and you acted in self-defense. It is a lie so thin it's transparent, but no one dares to question it. The applause in the Senate hall rings hollow, a manufactured sound of fear and sycophancy. This is not the validation you crave. This is the power you were given, the power your mother engineered for you, and now it feels tainted by her blood. So you turn away from the world of politics and intrigue, and you retreat into the world that has always been your truest refuge, the world of art. You have always been a performer at heart. As a boy, you scribbled poetry. You learned to play the cithara, a type of lyre, with a passion that bordered on obsessive. You loved the theatre, the soaring tragedies of Greece, the power of a single actor to hold thousands in thrall. Now, as the undisputed master of the world, you have the freedom to indulge these passions completely. You spend hours practicing your music, your voice echoing through the marble halls of your palace. You surround yourself not with senators and generals, but with poets, musicians, and actors. In their company, you feel understood. You feel seen not as Emperor Nero, but as Nero the artist. To a Roman aristocrat, this is horrifying. Their values are rooted in military glory, political service, and stoic dignity. Art is for the Greeks, for slaves, for low-born entertainers. For an emperor to publicly perform, to seek the applause of a crowd, is seen as the ultimate degradation, a prostitution of his sacred office. But you don't care. In fact, you resent their judgment. Your power over them is political, inherited, enforced by armies. But on the stage, if a crowd cheers for your song or your poetry, that is a victory you have earned yourself. It is a different kind of power, a purer form of adoration. It is the validation the boy in the golden cage never received. At first, you keep your performances semi-private. You institute the Juvenalia, a festival of games where you and other members of the high nobility perform on a private stage. The audience is by invitation only, a captive crowd of senators and their families who are obligated to applaud your every note. You take it all deadly seriously. An eccentric but true curiosity of the time is the detail of your vocal training. You would lie on your back with a heavy lead plate on your chest to strengthen your diaphragm, and you would fast for days before a performance, convinced that certain foods would damage your divine voice. This isn't just a hobby, it is a desperate, all-consuming quest for a new identity. Historians still debate whether your artistic obsession was a sign of a fragmenting psyche after the matricide, a calculated political move to rebrand yourself as a new kind of Hellenistic ruler, or a genuine, if naive, attempt to bring a new cultural renaissance to Rome. The truth is likely a tangled mix of all three, but the forced applause of your courtiers is not enough. It feels as hollow as the Senate's congratulations. You crave the roar of a real crowd, the judgment of the common people. So you make a decision that sends a shockwave of disgust through the Roman elite. You will make your public debut, but not in Rome, not yet. You choose the city of Naples, a place far more Greek in its culture and its sensibilities, a city where artists were celebrated, not scorned. It is your trial run, your opening night. You step onto the stage, not as an emperor gracing the masses with his presence, but as a competitor in the city's music festival. You sing your own compositions, poems set to the music of your lyre, and as you perform, an earthquake shakes the theater. The audience panics, but you calmly continue your song, interpreting the tremor not as a bad omen, but as a sign of the gods' applause. After you finish and the theater is empty, it collapses. You are convinced the gods themselves waited for your performance to end. You are no longer just an emperor. You are an artist, a divinely approved artist. And in your mind, the two identities have finally merged into one. But to the old guard of Rome, you are an emperor playing the fool, and they will never forgive you for it. You are in Rome. It is the middle of July in the year 64 AD, and the city is suffocating in the summer heat. The air is thick, humid, and carries the smells of 1,000,000 people packed into one space, a mix of cooking fires, sweat, and cheap wine. You walk through the narrow, winding streets, the shadows of towering wooden apartment blocks, the insulae offering the only relief from the relentless sun. These buildings are packed together so tightly that you can reach out and touch the one across the alley. They are a disaster waiting to happen, and tonight, it happens. It starts not in a palace or a temple, but in the most ordinary of places, a small shop in the sprawling commercial area around the Circus Maximus, the great chariot racing stadium. These shops are filled with flammable goods, oils, textiles, and other merchandise that becomes fuel for a spark. A single stray ember, perhaps from a cooking fire not properly extinguished, finds a home. A tiny flame flickers to life, then another and another, fed by the dry timber of the shop and fanned by a steady summer wind. The small fire grows with terrifying speed. At first, it's just a plume of smoke, a distant shout, but within hours, it is a monster, a roaring, unstoppable beast of a fire that leaps from one wooden tenement to the next. The narrow streets become wind tunnels, turning the blaze into a firestorm. The screams of the people, the roar of the flames, the crash of collapsing buildings, it all merges into a single, terrifying sound. You are not in the city when it begins. You are at your seaside villa in Antium, 35 miles away. When the news reaches you, you race back to Rome. The sight that greets you is apocalyptic. A significant portion of your capital city is a raging inferno. Your reaction is, by all accounts, surprisingly effective. You are not the paralyzed tyrant of legend. You immediately organize relief efforts. You throw open your private gardens and public buildings to house the tens of thousands of newly homeless citizens. You command that food be brought in from the surrounding towns and sold at a drastically reduced price. You design and fund the construction of temporary shelters. You are a commander in a war against the flames, and for days you lead the fight. But the fire has a life of its own. It burns for 6 days, dies down, and then reignites, burning for 3 more. When the last embers are extinguished, 2/3 of Rome is a smoking ruin. 14 districts have been affected, with 3 completely wiped from the face of the earth. The city is a wasteland of charred rubble and ghosts, and in the aftermath, the whispers begin. A traumatized population, having lost everything, cannot accept that this was a random accident. A disaster of this magnitude needs a villain, not just a faulty building permit. And so the most famous rumor of your life is born. The story spreads that while the city burned, you went to your private stage, looked out over the destruction, and overcome by a perverse artistic inspiration, you took up your lyre. There, you sang of the fall of Troy, comparing that ancient tragedy to the magnificent horror unfolding before you. This is the origin of the myth that Nero fiddled while Rome burned. Historians fiercely debate this. Your primary critic, Tacitus, reports it only as a rumor, not a fact. Given your obsession with performance, it has a ring of psychological truth. The artist in you, unable to resist such a dramatic backdrop. But is it true? Or was it a story created by a desperate people who needed someone to blame? The psychology is simple and brutal. In the face of overwhelming catastrophe, the human mind craves a narrative. Randomness is terrifying, meaningless. Malice, however, is an explanation. It gives the pain a target. And as you stand looking over the ruins of your capital, you can feel the mood of the city shifting. The shock is wearing off, and a dangerous, collective anger is taking its place. The people of Rome have lost their homes, their pasts, and their futures. They need an arsonist to punish. And in the ruins of the greatest city in the world, the hunt for a scapegoat has begun. The smoke has cleared. The last embers have turned to cold, grey ash. You stand on the Palatine Hill, looking down at what was once the heart of the Roman world, where a labyrinth of streets and a million lives once hummed with energy. There is now a vast empty canvas of destruction. For the homeless thousands huddled in makeshift camps, this is a landscape of despair. For your political enemies in the Senate, it is a symbol of your failure. But for you, for the artist inside the Emperor, this is not a tragedy. It is an opportunity, a divine gift, a chance to erase the chaotic, ugly city of the past and build a new Rome, a city worthy of your greatness, a city not for the people, but for you. You don't just rebuild, you seize the land, a huge swath of the city center, an area of over 100 acres that once held homes, shops, and public spaces, is declared your personal property. On this charred earth, you begin the most ambitious and self-indulgent building project in Roman history. You call it the Domus Aurea, the Golden House. The name itself is a declaration of your intent. This will not be a palace. This will be a world. It is designed to be a countryside estate in the middle of the city. There are sprawling vineyards, pastures with grazing flocks, forests filled with wild animals, all artificially created in the heart of Rome. At its center, you command the construction of a massive artificial lake, a shimmering mirror of water so large that the Colosseum will one day be built on its drained basin. It is a staggering act of landscape engineering, a terraforming of the urban environment to suit your pastoral fantasy. At the grand entrance, you erect a monument to the palace's true god, yourself. It is a colossal bronze statue, 120 feet tall, a true wonder of the ancient world. It is the Colossus of Nero, and its face, cast in your likeness, is crowned with the rays of the sun god, Sol. Every person entering your domain would first have to pass under your divine gaze. Inside, the Domus Aurea is a marvel of opulence that borders on the surreal. The interiors are vast, a maze of rooms and porticos where no expense is spared. The walls are not just painted, they are sheathed in polished marble and inlaid with shimmering mother-of-pearl and precious gemstones. The ceilings are gilded and frescoed with breathtaking scenes. But the true wonders are mechanical. One dining room is built with an ivory ceiling, fitted with sliding panels that could be opened to shower your dinner guests with flowers and perfumes released from hidden pipes. The most famous room of all is a circular dining hall with a revolutionary design. Its dome-shaped ceiling, painted with the stars and planets, revolved day and night in time with the heavens. It was a perfect, clockwork cosmos that you controlled. Historians still debate the ultimate purpose of the Golden House. Was it a purely private retreat, a fortress of solitude for a tyrant increasingly detached from reality? Or were parts of it, like the vast parks and the lake, intended for a kind of public use, a grand gesture of imperial generosity that was simply misunderstood? But for the average Roman, living in the squalor of the rebuilt city, the distinction was meaningless. They saw this colossal monument to your ego rising from the ashes of their own homes. The project was so vast and so expensive that a popular and bitter joke began to circulate through the city. Rome will become one house. Citizens migrate to Vigii. The Domus Aurea is more than a building. It is a psychological statement. It is a physical manifestation of your grandiose narcissism. In a world that you feel is filled with judgment and potential betrayal, you have built a new reality, a self-contained universe where everything revolves around you, literally. It is your ultimate stage, your perfect work of art. But it is also a tomb. You are walling yourself inside your own fantasy, becoming ever more disconnected from the people you rule. The Golden House gleams in the sun, a beautiful, shining symbol of your power. But it also casts a long and very dark shadow over Rome, and in that shadow, Resentment is growing like a weed. The gleaming marble of your Domus Aurea rises from the ashes, but it is not a symbol of rebirth to the people of Rome. It is a monument to their loss. The whispers that you started the fire to clear land for your palace have grown into a roar of public accusation. You can feel it in the streets, a cold, simmering anger that even the Praetorian Guard cannot entirely suppress. Your relief efforts are forgotten. Your generosity is seen as a guilty cover-up. You have given them bread, but now they want a circus of a different kind. They want justice. They want someone to blame. And you know, with a cold certainty, that if you don't give them a villain, they will choose you. You need to change the story. It is the greatest performance of your life, a work of political theater with the highest possible stakes. The mob is a beast, wild and directionless in its fury. Your task is to take that raw, chaotic anger and aim it, like a weapon, at a new target. You need a group that is small enough to be destroyed, strange enough to be feared, and unpopular enough that no one will defend them. You find the perfect candidates in a small, secretive religious sect that has been quietly growing in the city's poorer districts. They call themselves Christians. To the average Roman, these Christians are deeply unsettling. They are a puzzle of contradictions. They refuse to worship the Roman gods, an act that is not just impious, but deeply unpatriotic, like refusing to salute the flag. They speak of a king and a kingdom, which sounds dangerously like treason. They meet in private, in secret, which breeds suspicion. Ugly rumors circulate about them, whispers of cannibalism, of eating the flesh and drinking the blood of their founder in their bizarre rituals. They are seen as antisocial, atheistic fanatics, a cult that despises the traditions and the very fabric of Roman society. They are the perfect outsiders. It is a masterclass in the psychology of scapegoating. When a society is gripped by fear and trauma, it looks for simple answers to complex problems. You provide one. You don't just suggest the Christians are responsible. You officially accuse them of hatred of the human race. You turn them from a weird but harmless cult into a malevolent force that seeks the destruction of Rome itself. The public, desperate for a release valve for their pain and anger, latches onto this narrative with ferocious relief. The target is acquired. The hunt begins. Arrests are made. Confessions are extracted. And then you unleash the full, terrifying power of your theatrical cruelty. The punishments are not simple executions. They are grand, horrifying spectacles designed to satisfy the public's bloodlust and to be talked about for generations. You turn your private gardens, the very grounds of your opulent Domus Aurea, into a stage for this horror. Some of the condemned are covered in pitch, nailed to posts, and set ablaze, their burning bodies serving as human torches to illuminate your evening garden parties. You even ride among the crowds in your chariot, enjoying the show. An even more specific and perverse cruelty is reserved for others. In a dark parody of mythology, some Christians are sewn into the skins of wild animals and thrown into the arena to be torn apart by hunting dogs. Historians still debate the true scale of this persecution, whether it was a citywide pogrom or a more limited, though exceptionally brutal, series of public executions. Regardless of the numbers, the message was clear and terrifying. This is what happens to the enemies of Rome, and by extension, the enemies of Nero. For a time, it works. The anger of the Roman mob is satiated by the blood of the scapegoats. The rumors about your role in the fire are drowned out by the screams from your gardens. You have successfully redirected the narrative. You have taken a disaster that threatened your rule and turned it into an opportunity to display your absolute power. But you have also done something else. You have unleashed a new kind of cruelty, a persecution based not on political treason, but on belief. You have set a precedent that will haunt the empire for centuries, and in the process, you have added another layer to your own legend, transforming you from a decadent artist emperor into something far, far darker. The screams from your gardens have faded. The city of Rome, scarred but breathing, is slowly rebuilding itself. For a moment, you believe you have won. You have survived the fire. You have silenced the mob. You have purged the enemies of humanity. You retreat back into the gilded world of your Domus Aurea, a universe of your own making, filled with art, music, and the forced smiles of your courtiers. You feel untouchable, a god in a golden house. But you have made a critical mistake. You took your eyes off the real threat. The danger was never in the streets with the common mob. It was right there in the dining room with you, smiling at your jokes and drinking your wine. A web of betrayal has been woven around you, spun in the shadowy corners of aristocratic villas and in the whispered conversations of the Senate House. It is the most serious threat to your life and your throne yet. The conspiracy is named after its charismatic, handsome, and rather lazy figurehead, a nobleman named Gaius Calpurnius Piso, but he is just the face of the plot. The threads of the web extend everywhere, connecting senators, knights, and even officers of your own Praetorian Guard. These are not strangers. These are the men you see every day. The poet Lucan, Seneca's own nephew, is a part of it. Even Fenius Rufus, the colleague of your new Praetorian prefect, Tigellinus, is a key player. They are a cross-section of the Roman elite, all united by one thing, their desire to see you dead. Their motivations are a tangled mess. Some are old-school Republicans who dream of restoring the long-dead Republic. Others are simply ambitious, hoping to gain power under a new emperor. Many, however, are driven by a deep personal and cultural disgust for you. They despise your public performances, your obsession with Greek culture, your marriage to the foreign papaya. They see you as an embarrassment, a perversion of what a Roman emperor should be. So they plot. They plan to assassinate you during the games at the Circus Maximus, a moment of public chaos where they can get close to you. The conspiracy is nearly undone, and then saved by the remarkable courage of a woman. A freed woman named Epicurus tries to recruit a naval commander into the plot, but he betrays her. You have her arrested. She is interrogated, brutally tortured, but she reveals nothing. She names no names. She confirms nothing. Her silence, under unimaginable pain, holds the web together for a little while longer. Historians debate whether the conspiracy was a genuine, unified plot to restore the Republic, or merely a disorganized collection of personal grievances that coalesced around the charismatic figure of Piso. But to you, this distinction is meaningless. It is betrayal, pure and simple. The final unraveling comes from a place of common greed and fear. A senator in the plot orders his freedman, a man named Malichus, to sharpen a dagger and prepare bandages. The man's wife, sensing a dangerous secret and the possibility of a huge reward, convinces him to go to you. He does. He tells you everything he knows. The web is torn open, and your world shatters. The paranoia that has always been a quiet hum in the back of your mind now becomes a deafening roar. Everyone is a suspect. Every smile is a mask. Every compliment is a lie. The taste of fine wine turns to ash in your mouth. You unleash Tigellinus, your ruthless Praetorian prefect, and a wave of terror sweeps through the Roman aristocracy. Arrests are made not based on evidence, but on the desperate finger-pointing confessions of those already caught. It becomes a chain reaction of betrayal as plotters name their friends, their family, anyone, to save their own skin. The trials are swift and merciless, but for the highest-ranking conspirators, you offer a more dignified Roman solution. You send a centurion to their homes with a simple message, the order to take their own lives. One by one, the pillars of Roman society are forced to open their veins in their bathtubs. The purge is just beginning, and it will not stop until it has consumed everyone, including the man who was once your closest guide and the architect of your golden age. The purge continues, a fever dream of accusations and forced confessions. The web of the Pisonian Conspiracy, once a secret, is now something you tear apart thread by bloody thread in the full light of day. And then a name surfaces, one that echoes from your past with the weight of a marble statue. Seneca, your old tutor, the man who shaped your mind, wrote your speeches, and guided you through the celebrated golden years of your reign. A conspirator claims that Seneca was not only aware of the plot but was its intended beneficiary, the man they planned to make emperor after your death. Does it matter if it's true? In the hothouse atmosphere of your paranoia, the accusation itself is a death sentence. You have always had a complicated relationship with Seneca. He was the father figure you never truly had, a man of immense intellect who taught you the virtues of stoicism, of mercy, justice, and self-control. But he was also a hypocrite of staggering proportions. He wrote essays praising poverty while amassing one of the largest fortunes in the Roman Empire, much of it from you. He advised you on clemency while helping you navigate the political fallout of your mother's murder. You feel a cold thrill of justification. This betrayal, real or imagined, gives you the perfect excuse to remove the last living monument to your own conscience. You send a tribune to his villa outside Rome. You want a report of his last moments, a final performance for you to judge from afar. Seneca receives the news with the calm composure you would expect from a lifelong Stoic. He is dining with his wife, Paulina, and 2 friends. He is denied the right to write a will, a final petty cruelty you inflict upon him. So instead, he turns to his friends and says that he leaves them the one thing of value he still possesses, the pattern of his own life. He comforts his weeping wife, embraces her, and urges her to bear her grief with fortitude. Then he asks for the blades. The scene, as it's reported back to you, is one of drawn-out, almost pathetic, tragedy. A physician cuts the veins in his arms, but Seneca is old, his body frail and his circulation poor. The blood refuses to flow, merely trickling out in a slow, sluggish stream. To hasten the process, he has the veins in his legs and behind his knees severed as well. Still, he lingers, his mind sharp as ever, even as his body fails him. He dictates his final thoughts to a scribe, his voice steady, a philosopher lecturing from a deathbed of his own making. It's at this point that a truly curious detail emerges. His wife Paulina declares that she will die with him. It is a final, dramatic act of Roman marital devotion. She has her own veins cut, but you, upon hearing this, intervene. You send an order that she must be saved. Your soldiers rush in, and they bind her wounds, stopping the bleeding. Why? Was it a flicker of your old self, the boy Seneca once tutored, showing a moment of mercy? Was it a calculated political move to show the world that your vengeance had its limits? Or was it something far colder, a desire to deny Seneca the comfort of a shared death, to force his beloved wife to live on, pale and weakened for the rest of her days, a living ghost and a testament to your clemency? Historians have long argued over this act, unable to decide if it was mercy or a more refined form of cruelty. Seneca's own end is still far off. To escape the pain and the sight of his wife's suffering, he has himself carried into another room. He drinks a cup of poison, the same hemlock that killed Socrates, but it has no effect on his cold limbs and near bloodless body. Finally, he is carried into a steam bath. There, in the thick, hot vapor, he finally suffers. His last act is to sprinkle the water on the floor as a libation. His last words, a dedication to Jupiter the Liberator. With the death of Seneca, you have not just eliminated a supposed traitor, you have severed the last major link to your own past. The voice of Stoic reason that once whispered in your ear is now silent forever. There is no one left to temper your impulses, no one to challenge you. You are utterly, terrifyingly alone. Rome has become a city of ghosts. The corridors of your palace, once filled with the ambitious chatter of senators and courtiers, are now silent, tense spaces where men avoid your gaze. The Pisonian Conspiracy revealed a truth you can never unlearn, that the very people who surround you may be dreaming of your death. Seneca is gone. The old guard is purged. You are surrounded by new men, men who owe you everything, but you trust them even less. The city itself feels like a cage, Is every marble wall echoing with the memory of fire and betrayal? You are the absolute master of this world, and you have never felt more trapped. So you decide to run away, not like a coward in the night, but like a god descending from a troubled Olympus to a land more worthy of his presence. You turn your eyes to Greece. To you, Greece is not just a province of your empire. It is a concept, a dream. It is the birthplace of poetry, philosophy, and the theater. It is a land where art is not a frivolous diversion, but the highest expression of the human spirit. In Rome, your artistic passions are a source of scandal. In Greece, you believe they will be a source of glory. You will go not as a conquering emperor, but as a humble pilgrim, an artist seeking judgment from the true masters of culture. You announce a grand tour. It is an unprecedented decision. For an emperor to leave the capital for a few weeks is one thing, but to abandon Italy for over a year is a political gamble of the highest order. Who will manage the city? Who will keep the armies loyal? Your advisors are aghast, but your mind is made up. You gather an entourage that is less like an imperial court and more like a traveling festival. It includes thousands of soldiers, courtiers, and your personal cheer squad. A 5,000-strong group of young men called the Augustiani, who have been professionally trained to applaud, cheer, and chant your praises on cue. Your arrival in Greece is a triumph of stage management. You don't just visit the famous artistic and religious festivals, you compete in them. And in a display of your absolute power, you have the schedules of the 4 most sacred Panhellenic Games, including the Olympics, all rearranged to take place in a single year to accommodate your itinerary. The Greeks, a mixture of flattered and terrified, comply. You become a touring athlete, a traveling musician, competing in every event that interests you. You compete in lyre playing, in singing, in acting, and even in chariot racing. The results are, to no one's surprise, spectacular. You win every single contest you enter. The judges, with your Praetorian guardsmen standing nearby, consistently find your performances to be of unparalleled genius. You are awarded over 1,800 victory crowns, which are paraded before you as you travel from city to city. Historians still debate the true motivation for this extraordinary journey. Was it a sophisticated act of cultural diplomacy, an attempt to bind the culturally vital Greek world closer to Rome? Or was it the ultimate act of imperial narcissism, a troubled man abandoning his duties to live out his rock star fantasy on the grandest stage imaginable? One particular event at the Olympic Games perfectly captures the absurdity of it all. You enter the 10-horse chariot race, a dangerous and prestigious event. During the frantic race, you are thrown from your chariot, a humiliating and nearly fatal accident. You are helped back in, but you are unable to finish the course. And yet, the judges, after a period of what must have been very serious deliberation, declare you the winner, on the grounds that you surely would have won had you not fallen. You accept the olive wreath with the solemn dignity of a true champion. For you, in this carefully constructed fantasy world, the applause is real. The victories are earned. You are not the feared tyrant of Rome. You are the beloved artist of Greece. For a golden year, you live in a paradise of your own design, blissfully unaware that back in Rome, the real world is beginning to fall apart, while you are in Greece, collecting crowns and living out your artistic fantasy. A different kind of accounting is taking place back in Rome. The empire runs on 2 things: the loyalty of its armies and the grain in its storehouses, and both are starting to run dangerously low. Your reign has been an era of breathtaking extravagance. The construction of the Domus Aurea alone was a financial black hole, swallowing a significant portion of the state's wealth. Rebuilding the city after the Great Fire required enormous public expenditure. And now, your year-long theatrical tour of Greece is not just a political drain, it's a fiscal catastrophe. Your massive entourage, the lavish gifts you bestow on Greek cities, the sheer logistics of moving the imperial court across the sea, it all costs a fortune. The imperial treasury, once overflowing with the plunder of conquest, is hemorrhaging money. To solve this, you resort to a series of desperate and increasingly dangerous measures. You begin by devaluing the currency. You order the mints to reduce the amount of precious metal in the coins, striking denarii and aurii that are lighter and contain more base metals, like copper. It's an ancient form of inflation, a clever trick that allows you to mint more coins from the same amount of silver and gold. In the short term, it works. You can pay your soldiers and finance your projects, but in the long run, it erodes public confidence in the money itself. People start to hoard the older, purer coins. The economy begins to falter. When currency debasement isn't enough, you turn to more direct methods of fundraising. You revive and aggressively prosecute old treason laws, not for political security, but for profit. Wealthy senators and landowners are accused of disloyalty on the flimsiest of pretexts. They are convicted, executed, or forced to commit suicide, and their vast estates and fortunes are confiscated by the state, which is to say, by you. This is not just justice, it's state-sanctioned robbery. A cloud of fear settles over the wealthy classes. Anyone with a large fortune is a potential target. One of the more obscure, yet telling, examples of your financial desperation was your obsession with a rumored treasure. A man from Roman Africa came to you with a story of a vast hidden treasure belonging to the ancient Carthaginian queen Dido, supposedly buried in caves on his property. You become completely convinced of its existence, seeing it as the divine solution to all your financial woes. You spend a fortune outfitting an expedition to retrieve it. For months, the Roman world waits in anticipation for the influx of Carthaginian gold. Of course, the treasure doesn't exist. The expedition returns, empty-handed. Your public humiliation is matched only by the financial cost of the wild goose chase. Historians still debate the severity of the Neronian economic crisis. Some argue it was a critical factor in your downfall, creating widespread discontent. Others suggest that while the elites suffered, the common people were largely insulated by your populist policies, like the grain dole. But one group could not be ignored: the army. Soldiers on the frontiers, from Britain to Syria, depended on regular, reliable pay. When their wages were delayed or paid in the new, devalued currency, their loyalty began to waver. A broke emperor is a weak emperor. A commander in a distant province, sitting at the head of a well-trained and increasingly resentful army, might start to think that he could manage the empire's finances a lot better than the lyre-playing spendthrift in Rome. The economic cracks are spreading through the foundations of your power. The treasury is empty, the rich hate you, and the goodwill of your armies is a resource you have almost completely exhausted. You finally return to Italy from your Greek odyssey, not as a returning statesman, but as a conquering hero of the arts. You stage a grand triumphal procession, a ceremony traditionally reserved for generals who had won great military victories. But your chariot is not filled with captured enemy leaders and spoils of war. It is filled with your 1800 victory crowns. You enter Rome through a specially breached section of the city wall, a symbolic act usually reserved for victors of the sacred Olympic Games. You are Nero the Olympian, Nero the artist king. You parade through the streets to the adoring and likely paid cheers of the crowd, a monument to your own perceived glory. You are back at the center of the world, convinced of your own divinity, utterly deaf to the rumblings of discontent from the provinces. The first tremor of the earthquake that will shatter your world comes from the north, from the province of Gallia Lugdunensis, modern-day France. It is March of the year 68 AD. The governor of this province is a man named Gaius Julius Vindex. He is a Roman senator, but he is of Gallic aristocratic descent, a man whose family was granted citizenship by Julius Caesar himself. He is a powerful link between the old Gallic nobility and the new Roman order, and he has had enough. Vindex is not a fool. He knows he cannot challenge the full might of the Roman legions alone. He has no legions of his own, only a local militia. so he does not declare himself emperor. Instead, he begins a campaign of open defiance, a revolt not against the Roman Empire, but against you, personally. He writes letters to the other provincial governors, urging them to join him in overthrowing the unworthy artist, the disgraceful actor who occupies the throne. He condemns your extravagance, your murder of your mother, your executions of respected senators. He frames his rebellion as a moral crusade to save Rome from a tyrant. Your reaction, when the news reaches you in Naples, is one of disdainful amusement. A revolt in Gaul, led by whom? Vindex. You reportedly scoff at the news, declaring that you will deal with this minor inconvenience after you have finished your musical practice. You joke that you will defeat the Gauls with nothing but your songs. This is the first clear sign of how completely you have lost touch with reality. You see this not as a serious military threat, but as an annoying interruption to your artistic life, an uncultured barbarian challenging a god. But Vindex is more dangerous than you think. His words find fertile ground. The grievances he lists are the same ones being whispered in every province, in every legionary camp. Your financial policies have squeezed the provinces dry. Your confiscation of estates has terrified the wealthy. Your neglect of the frontiers has worried the generals. Vindex is simply the first one to say it out loud. The psychological impact of his revolt is immense. It shatters your aura of invincibility. It proves that open opposition is possible. It is a spark, and the whole empire is a tinderbox. Historians still debate Vindex's true motives. Was he a noble idealist fighting for a better Rome? Or was he a canny opportunist who saw a chance to seize power for himself? Regardless of his intent, his actions set in motion an unstoppable chain of events. While you are still basking in the afterglow of your Greek tour, the Roman legions on the Rhine, under the command of Lucius Virginius Rufus, march against Vindex. They see him not as a liberator, but as a Gallic upstart threatening the stability of the empire. They meet his poorly trained forces in battle, and they crush them. Vindex, seeing his cause is lost, takes his own life. You receive the news of Vindex's defeat and death, and you celebrate. You believe the crisis is over, but you have misunderstood everything. Virginius Rufus's legions, flushed with victory, have tasted their own power. They immediately offer to make their own commander, Virginius, the new emperor. He, a man of staunch traditional principles, refuses the honor, insisting that the choice of emperor belongs to the Senate in Rome. But the offer has been made. The genie is out of the bottle. The precedent has been set. The legions have realized that they, not the Senate or the Praetorian Guard, are the true kingmakers of Rome. And across the Pyrenees in Spain, another, older, and far more respected governor has been watching Vindex's rebellion very, very closely. The news from Gaul travels south, over the mountains, carried on the lips of messengers and merchants. It reaches you in Rome, but more importantly, it reaches the ears of an old man in the province of Hispania Tarraconensis. His name is Servius Sulpicius Galba. At 71 years old, he is everything you are not. He is a relic of a bygone era, a man from one of Rome's oldest and most distinguished noble families. He is known for his stern discipline, his old-fashioned Roman virtues, and a personal frugality so extreme it borders on comical. While you were building a golden house, he was meticulously counting the state's pennies. He is the living embodiment of the aristocratic tradition you have so gleefully trampled upon. Vindex had written to Galba before his revolt, pleading for him to join the cause and come to the aid of the human race. But Galba, cautious and experienced, had hesitated. Now, Vindex is dead, his rebellion crushed, and Galba is in a terrifying position. He knows that his correspondence with the rebel will have been discovered. He knows your paranoia and your cruelty. For him, there is no middle ground left. To do nothing is to sit in his governor's palace and wait for the assassins you will inevitably send. His only other choice is to finish what Vindex started. The moment of decision is fraught with tension. He is an old man, suffering from severe arthritis, his body frail and failing. He commands only a single legion. The risks are astronomical, but his advisors, and his own instinct for survival, urge him to act. So he climbs a public tribunal, not in the gleaming marble of Rome, but in the dusty provincial capital of Carthago Nova. He doesn't declare himself emperor. That would be treason, a naked power grab. Instead, he makes a move of political genius. He declares himself the legatus senatus populic Romani, the legate of the Senate and the Roman people. Think about the psychological brilliance of this title. He is not a new tyrant replacing an old one. He is a servant. He is a humble soldier acting on behalf of the state's legitimate authorities, who are, he implies, being held hostage by you. He casts himself as a restorer of order, a champion of tradition, the very opposite of the erratic, self-obsessed artist on the throne. He is not fighting for himself, he is fighting for Rome. It is a declaration of war, cloaked in the language of civic duty. When this news reaches you, your world tilts on its axis. Vindex was a nuisance, a provincial upstart you could mock. Galba is something else entirely. He is a former consul, a respected patrician, a man with deep connections in the Senate. This is not a rebellion from the fringes. This is a challenge from the very heart of the Roman establishment you have so alienated. The amusement you felt about Vindex evaporates, replaced by a cold, sickening dread. For the first time, you are truly afraid. An odd but telling curiosity from this period is a description of Galba in his old age. He was completely bald, with a sharply hooked nose, and his arthritis was so severe in his hands and feet that he couldn't wear proper shoes and could barely hold a scroll. The image of this physically decrepit old man launching a rebellion against the youthful, all-powerful emperor is a striking one. Historians still debate Galba's motivations. Was he a reluctant patriot, driven by a genuine desire to save the state from your misrule, as his propaganda claimed? Or was he simply a cornered old man, making a desperate final gamble to save his own skin after Vindex's failure left him dangerously exposed? The truth, as always, is likely somewhere in between. But for you, his reasons don't matter. The challenge has been made. The old, traditional, respected Rome that you have tried so hard to ignore has just risen up against you in the form of a crippled old man. And across the empire, other governors, other generals are watching, waiting to see which way the wind will blow. The spark of Vindex's rebellion may have been stamped out, but it has ignited a much larger fire. Your fear curdles into a frantic, chaotic energy. You are back in Rome, and the city feels like it is closing in on you. Galba's challenge from Spain has electrified the Senate. The men who once trembled before you are now exchanging nervous glances, their loyalty evaporating with every piece of bad news. You try to rally support. You deliver rambling, incoherent speeches, sometimes threatening, sometimes pleading. You talk of leading an army yourself, of marching against Galba. You even have a bizarre idea to arm a contingent of city courtesans and lead them into battle, singing, believing their beauty would disarm the grizzled legionaries. You are coming apart at the seams, but you still have one last line of defense. The ace up your sleeve, the Praetorian Guard. They are the 10,000 elite, hand-picked soldiers garrisoned in Rome, the emperor's personal bodyguards. They are the kingmakers and the king. As long as they are loyal to you, no senator, no distant provincial governor can touch you. Their loyalty is the bedrock upon which your power rests. You have showered them with bonuses. You have trusted them completely. Your prefect, the notoriously cruel Tigellinus, has been your right hand, your enforcer. Surely they will not abandon you. But you have forgotten the most important rule of power in Rome. Loyalty is a transaction, not an emotion, and you are no longer a good investment. The other Praetorian prefect, a man named Nymphidius Sabinus, is a cunning and ambitious opportunist. He sees the writing on the wall. He sees your panic, the empty treasury, the growing support for Galba. He understands that the tide has turned, and he decides to swim with it, not against it. He sees a chance not just to survive, but to become the most powerful man in the new regime. He makes his move. It is a simple, brutal act of political calculus. He goes to the Praetorian camp, the Castra Praetoria, just outside the city walls. He gathers the soldiers, and he tells them two enormous lies. First, he tells them that you have already abandoned Rome, that you have fled in a panic to Egypt. This plants the seed that they are protecting an empty throne, that their loyalty is to a man who has already deserted them. Second, and this is the masterstroke, he makes them an offer in Galba's name. He promises every single Praetorian a donative, a cash bonus of 30,000 sesterces. To put this into perspective, this sum was more than double their annual salary. It was a life-changing amount of money. Historians still debate whether Nymphidius was acting on his own initiative, hoping to indebt the new emperor to him, or if he was already secretly communicating with Galba's agents. Either way, the effect is instantaneous and decisive. You have offered them loyalty to a failing, possibly fugitive emperor. Nymphidius offers them stability and a fortune. It is not a difficult choice. Imagine you are one of those guardsmen. You are a professional soldier. You have seen your emperor grow more erratic. You have heard the rumors of military revolts and an empty treasury. You worry if your next paycheck will even arrive. Your job is to protect the emperor, yes, but your ultimate duty is to your own future, your own family. When your commander presents you with a choice between defending a collapsing regime for nothing and embracing a new one for a massive reward, what do? You do what any rational person would. You take the money. The cheers for Galba echo from the Praetorian camp and roll across the city. The bedrock of your power has just turned to sand. The news spreads with the speed of a plague. Your other prefect, the feared Tigellinus, simply disappears. He sees the game is up and melts away to save his own skin. A final, silent betrayal from your most loyal monster. Your household staff, your slaves, your friends, they all begin to slip away into the shadows. That evening, you retire to your chambers in the palace, hoping to plan your next move. When you wake up in the middle of the night, you find the palace is eerily silent. You call out for your guards. There is no answer. You walk the halls of your vast, golden home. They are empty. The sentries are gone. The Praetorian Guard has abandoned you. You are utterly, completely alone. And in the terrifying silence of your own palace, you finally understand. It's over. The silence of the palace is a physical presence, a heavy blanket that smothers all sound. You stumble through the gilded halls of your Domus Aurea, your bare feet cold on the intricate mosaics. Just yesterday, these corridors bustled with life, with the whispers of servants and the confident stride of your guards. Now, they are empty tombs. Every shadow seems to hide a threat. Every gust of wind through an open portico sounds like an approaching footstep. The psychological shock of the Praetorians' betrayal is profound. They were more than your guards. They were the living symbol of your security, the wall between you and the chaos of the world. And now, the wall is gone. One of your few remaining loyal freedmen, a man named Finn, finds you. His face is pale, his eyes wide with terror. He brings news from the city. The Praetorians' declaration for Galba has sent a shockwave through Rome, and the Senate, the august body of men you have alternately charmed, terrified, and ignored for 14 years, has been hastily convened. You can almost picture the scene. The senators, clad in their white togas, filing into the Curia Julia, the air thick with the stench of fear and opportunism. These are the same men who, just months ago, were voting you divine honors after your triumphant return from Greece. They are the same men who sat through your private concerts, applauding until their hands were sore. How do they reconcile this? This is the moment of supreme cognitive dissonance. To vote for your death now is to admit that their adulation for you was a lie, that they themselves were cowards and sycophants. The human mind cannot bear such a contradiction, so they rewrite the past. They tell themselves, and each other, that they were not complicit, they were victims. They were living under a terrible tyranny, forced to applaud, forced to praise. You were never an artist, you were a monster. They were never collaborators, they were brave survivors. It is a collective act of psychological self-preservation, a desperate washing of hands before they are dipped in your blood. It starts with one brave, or foolish, senator. He stands and denounces you, his voice trembling at first, then growing stronger as he sees others nodding in agreement. Then another stands, then another. It becomes a cascade of condemnation, a competition to see who can be the most righteously indignant. It is the mob mentality of the elite. The fear of being the last one to join the winning side is more powerful than any lingering loyalty to you. And so, the motion is made. The Senate of Rome, by formal decree, declares you a hostis publicus, an enemy of the state. This is not just a title, it is a legal and spiritual annihilation. It strips you of your citizenship, your property, your very humanity. You are no longer Nero, Claudius, Caesar Augustus, Germanicus, Emperor of Rome. You are a hunted animal. Anyone in the empire is now legally permitted, and even encouraged, to kill you on sight, without trial. To do so would be a celebrated public service. An obscure but terrifying detail of this declaration is the specific punishment it prescribes. Death, maiorem, according to the custom of the ancestors. This means you are to be stripped naked, your head locked in a wooden fork, and then beaten to death with rods in the middle of the forum. Historians still debate whether the Senate's move was a genuine act of political agency or simply a panicked reaction to the Praetorians' betrayal, a rubber stamp on a decision already made by the military. But for you, the distinction is academic. The news, delivered by Finn in a panicked whisper, hits you like a physical blow. The very institution that gave your power its legitimacy has now signed your death warrant. The irony is suffocating. You, who sought the applause of the crowd above all else, have been condemned by the ultimate crowd. You look around the magnificent room, at the gold, the jewels, the masterpieces of art. They are worthless. The Domus Aurea is no longer your palace. It is your tomb, and if you stay here, they will drag you from it and beat you to death like a dog. You have to run. You have to run. The words are a drumbeat in your skull. Run. Run from the Senate's decree. Run from the phantom pain of the rods. Run from the city that once worshipped you and now wants to tear you apart. The imperial purple is gone, stripped from you like a skin. You are dressed in a plain, dark tunic, the rough fabric scratching your skin, a constant reminder of your new status. A cheap, floppy hat is pulled down to hide your famous face, and an old cloak is thrown over your shoulders. You, who once wore jewels and silk, are now disguised as a common traveler, a ghost slipping out of your own life. You mount a horse. You are accompanied by only 4 loyal men, your last remaining audience. The hoofbeats on the stone-paved streets of Rome sound like thunder in the dead of night, a terrifyingly loud announcement of your escape. You pull the cloak tighter around your face, convinced every shadow holds a legionary. Every shuttered window hides a pair of watching eyes. As you ride, the night itself seems to conspire against you. A sudden tremor shakes the ground beneath you, a minor earthquake, as if the very earth is trying to throw you off. A flash of lightning illuminates the sky for a split second, and in that stark, white light, your face is revealed. You are certain someone saw you. Your terror is a living thing, a cold presence riding behind you on the horse. The journey is a nightmare of humiliation. As you pass the Praetorian camp, you can hear the soldiers loudly cursing your name and cheering for Galba. The men who once pledged their lives to you are now celebrating your impending death. A little further down the road, you pass a man coming into the city. He asks your small group, "What's the news in Rome? Are they looking for Nero?" The casual question hits you like a physical blow. You are no longer the subject of reverence, but of gossip, a fugitive in your own story. Later, A retired soldier passes, sees you, and salutes you out of habit, before realizing his mistake and quickly turning away. Each of these small encounters is a fresh stab of the knife, reminding you of the world you have lost. Your destination is a modest country villa, owned by your freedman, Finn, just 4 miles from the city. But you cannot simply ride up to the front gate. You have to abandon the horses and make the final approach on foot, through a rough, overgrown path. You, who once walked on perfumed rose petals, are now forced to crawl on your hands and knees through a thicket of reeds and brambles. Thorns tear at your cloak and your skin. Twigs whip across your face. It is a slow, painful, utterly undignified journey through the dirt. At one point, parched with thirst, you stop. The only water available is a muddy, stagnant pool in a ditch. You cup your hands and scoop up the foul-smelling liquid, bringing it to your lips. As you drink the gritty, lukewarm water, the artist in you makes one last, bitter observation. "So this is Nero's famed boiled water," you mutter, a reference to your own decadent habit of only drinking water that had been boiled and then chilled in snow. It is a moment of perfect, tragic sarcasm, the emperor inside you critiquing your own miserable performance. Historians often question how such intimate, almost cinematic details survived, debating whether they are the verbatim truth or dramatic embellishments from sources like Suetonius, designed to highlight the moral of a tyrant's fall. Finally, you reach the back of the villa. You cannot enter through a door. An opening has been dug for you through the wall. You crawl through the hole into a small, dark room, a space meant for a slave. It is damp and cold. A crude mattress stuffed with straw lies on the floor. This is it. This is your final palace. Your golden house has shrunk to the size of a dirt-floored cell. You collapse onto the mattress, the straw pricking your skin. You are exhausted, filthy, and stripped of everything. You are no longer an emperor, an artist, a god. You are just a man, trapped in a dark room, listening to the sound of hoofbeats growing closer in the distance. Your pursuers are here. The hoofbeats stop. You hear the jingle of harnesses, the gruff murmur of men's voices. They are outside. They are here. A wave of pure animal terror washes over you, so cold it feels like you've been plunged into a frozen river. Your 4 companions look at you, their faces etched with a frantic urgency. They beg you, end it now. End it with some shred of dignity, the last remaining currency of a Roman noble. Do not let them take you. Do not let them drag you back to the city for the horror of the wooden fork and the rods. But you can't. Your hands tremble. The dagger they press into your palm feels alien, impossibly heavy. Your entire life has been a performance, an elaborate stage play, but you have forgotten how to write the final scene. So you procrastinate. In a moment of supreme, tragic absurdity, you command your companions to start digging a grave for you in the small patch of earth outside the room. You lie down on the ground, and you have them measure your body's length, a custom fitting for your own final resting place. As you listen to the scrape of shovels on the stony ground, you begin to weep, not with quiet grief, but with loud, theatrical sobs. You look at the rough hole being dug in the dirt, and the artist in you is appalled. This is not a fitting end. You ask them to find some scraps of marble, anything to line this pathetic trench, to give it some semblance of style. You are directing your own death scene, and the set dressing is all wrong. Between your sobs, you repeat the same phrase over and over, a final, bitter review of your own life's work. Qualis, artifacts, perio, what an artist dies in me. You hold the dagger to your throat. You feel the cold shock of the steel against your skin, but you cannot push. You pull back. You try again. You pull back again. You are paralyzed by the finality of it, the simple, brutal mechanics of your own extinction. You need more time. You need a better line. A courier, one of Galba's men, bursts into the villa's courtyard. A scroll is delivered to Finn, who reads it to you. It is the official Senate decree, now formally delivered, confirming every horrifying detail of your prescribed public execution. The abstract threat is now a concrete reality. The sound of the soldiers approaching the back of the villa grows louder. This is it, the final curtain. You hear the thundering of hooves again, a line from Homer's Iliad bubbling up from your memory, a final literary flourish. The sound of swift-footed horses strikes my ears. You are still quoting, still performing, still a spectator at your own demise. You turn to one of your companions and beg him to kill himself first, to show you how it's done, to give you the courage. He refuses. Finally, as you hear the soldiers breaking into the villa, you know there are no more seconds left to steal. You place the point of the dagger against your neck, just below the jaw, but your hand still wavers. It is your loyal freedman, your secretary, Epaphroditus, who provides the final push. He places his hand over yours and forces the blade home. It is not a clean or noble act. It is a clumsy, desperate, assisted suicide. As you lie there, the life bleeding out of you onto the dirt floor, the first of the soldiers, a centurion, bursts into the room. He sees you dying, and in a moment of pity or duty, he rushes forward and tries to stanch the wound with his cloak. You look up at him, your eyes glazing over, and you manage one last, cryptic line. Too late, you gasp. This is faithfulness. Then you are gone. Your eyes stare wide open, a look of such horror frozen on your face that it terrifies all who see it. Your famous final words, "What an artist dies in me," have been debated by historians for 2,000 years. Was it the ultimate expression of a narcissistic personality disorder? A man who saw his own death only in terms of its effect on the arts? Or was it something more, a genuinely tragic lament from a man who believed his true calling was not the throne, but the stage, a role he was never truly allowed to play? The performance is over. Your death is not an end. It is the pulling of a loose thread that unravels the entire imperial tapestry. For a brief, dizzying moment, Rome breathes a sigh of relief. The tyrant is dead. A respected elder, Galba, is marching towards the city to restore order and tradition. But you have left behind a fatal inheritance, a lesson that once learned can never be forgotten. You have taught the armies of the empire that they, and they alone, are the true source of power. You have created a power vacuum, and the Roman world is about to be sucked into its violent vortex. The man who was supposed to be the solution, Galba, proves to be the first symptom of the new disease. He arrives in Rome not as a liberator, but as a stern, unbending accountant. His first and most fatal mistake is a matter of simple economics. Remember that enormous bonus Nymphidius Sabinus promised the Praetorian Guard in Galba's name. Galba, a man of legendary stinginess, refuses to pay it. He famously declares that he recruits soldiers. He does not buy them. It is a statement of high principle, and it is a suicidal miscalculation. He has alienated the only armed force in the city, the very men who gave him the throne. His reign lasts only 7 months. The end comes swiftly and brutally in the heart of the city, in the Roman Forum itself. The Praetorians, feeling cheated and betrayed, offer their loyalty to a new candidate, Marcus Salvius Otho. You knew Otho well. He was once your friend, your partner in youthful debauchery, and the former husband of Poppaea Sabina. He was one of your own kind. The soldiers march into the Forum, find the frail, 71-year-old Galba, and they butcher him on the spot. His body is hacked to pieces on the ancient paving stones. The year has just begun, and Rome already has its second emperor. Otho's reign is even shorter. While he secures Rome, the powerful legions stationed on the Rhine River have their own ideas. They have no loyalty to a city-appointed emperor. They have loyalty only to their own commander, Aulus Vitellius, a man known more for his epic gluttony than his military skill. They proclaim him emperor, and they begin the long march south towards Italy. For the first time in a century, Roman armies are marching not against foreign enemies, but against each other, brother against brother, legion against legion. In a bloody battle in northern Italy, Vitellius's forces defeat Otho, and here a strange and remarkable curiosity occurs. Otho, the man who lived a life of luxury and opportunism, decides to die with a dignity that eluded you completely. To prevent further civil war, he takes his own life. He gives a calm, rational speech to his soldiers, puts his affairs in order, and then, in the privacy of his tent, he falls upon his own sword. It is a surprisingly noble end for a man who began as your accomplice. So now Rome has its third emperor of the year. His entry into the city is not a political event, it is an invasion. His undisciplined Rhine legions loot and terrorize the populace. His reign is a brief, chaotic affair, marked by gargantuan feasts and a complete breakdown of administrative order. But while he is gorging himself in the palace, another power is stirring in the east. The legions in Judea, hardened by a tough war, have grown tired of the chaos in Rome. They have their own commander, a rugged, pragmatic, and highly competent general named Titus Flavius Vespasian. They proclaim him emperor. The final act of this bloody drama is the worst. Vespasian's legions march on Rome, and the city itself becomes a battlefield. The fighting rages through the streets, up the Capitoline Hill itself, where the sacred temple of Jupiter, Optimus Maximus, is burned to the ground. Vitellius is found hiding, dragged through the streets, tortured, and his body thrown into the Tiber. By the end of the year 69 AD, Rome has had its fourth emperor, Vespasian. He is the one who will finally bring stability, the one who will clean up the mess. Historians still debate whether this cataclysm was the inevitable result of a flawed imperial system or the direct consequence of your specific failures. The financial ruin and military alienation you personally engineered. But the great secret, as the historian Tacitus would later write, was now revealed: that an emperor could be made elsewhere than in Rome. You did not just die, you broke the world you inherited, and it would take a year of blood and fire to put it back together again. Your body is not thrown into the Tiber like a common criminal. In a final act of devotion, two of your childhood nurses and your former mistress, Octa, claim your remains. They have you wrapped in white linen, embroidered with gold, and they cremate you on a modest pyre. Your ashes are placed not in the grand mausoleum of Augustus with your divine ancestors, but in the family tomb of the Demeti, your father's people. You are Lucius Domitius Ahenobarbus once more. The story, it seems, is over. Your name has been officially condemned, your statues are torn down, your memory damned. But a strange thing happens. You refuse to stay dead. In the chaotic year that follows your death, your tomb is said to have been found, decorated with fresh spring and summer flowers, placed there by an unknown hand. But this is just the beginning. Soon, a far more potent legend begins to circulate, a rumor that whispers its way from the taverns of Rome to the farthest corners of the empire. You are not dead. You survived. You fled to the east, to Parthia, Rome's great rival, and you are gathering an army. One day, you will return at the head of a Parthian horde to reclaim your throne and take vengeance on your enemies. This is the birth of the Nero Redivivus legend, the belief that Nero would rise again. It is a powerful and persistent myth, one rooted in a complex psychology. For the Roman elite, your memory is a source of horror, the ultimate cautionary tale of a tyrant. But for many of the common people, especially in the Greek-speaking East, your reign was remembered differently. They remembered your love of the arts, your lavish games, your populist appeal. They remembered you not as a monster, but as a benefactor. For them, the chaos and bloodshed of the year of the four emperors was a far worse reality than your stable, if eccentric, rule. So they hoped for your return. The legend becomes so potent that for the next 20 years, at least 3 different impostors, or pseudo-Neros, appear in the East, each claiming to be you, each gathering a significant following before being captured and executed. An even more curious legacy takes root within the small, persecuted Christian community. They, who suffered so horribly at your hands, also see you as a figure of eschatological significance. Your persecution was so traumatic, so seemingly inhuman, that they begin to interpret you in apocalyptic terms. You become the embodiment of evil, the Antichrist, the beast from the sea described in the book of Revelation, whose number is 666. Some scholars believe that the numerical value of the letters in Nero Caesar in the Hebrew alphabet adds up to that very number. The legend morphs. You are not just a returning king, you are a demonic figure who will return at the end of times to bring about the final tribulation. Historians have struggled for 2 millennia to reconcile the different versions of you. Were you the sensitive artist trapped in a tyrant's role, as some modern revisionists suggest? Or were you the matricidal, narcissistic monster portrayed by Tacitus and Suetonius? Was the Great Fire an accident or an act of arson? Was the Golden House a public wonder or a private folly? The truth is, you are a paradox. You were a man raised in a psychological crucible of immense pressure, groomed for a role you were temperamentally unsuited for. You craved the genuine applause of an audience, but were given the forced adulation of a court. You were capable of both surprising acts of good governance and breathtaking acts of cruelty. And so you live on, not as a man, but as a symbol of absolute power and its ability to corrupt, a symbol of the eternal clash between art and politics, between personal desire and public duty. Your story is a dark mirror held up to our own world, reflecting our fascination with fame, our fear of tyranny, and the terrifyingly thin line between a leader and a performer. The boy in the golden cage is long gone, the artist is dead, the emperor is dust, but the ghost of Nero, in all its terrifying and fascinating complexity, continues to haunt the stage of history. The story is over now. The echoes of chariot wheels and the whispers of senators have faded into the quiet of the night. The great, sprawling city of Rome, with its golden palaces and its dark, winding alleys, now exists only in our shared imagination. The tale of a boy who became an emperor, and an emperor who became a monster, has found its end, and all that is left is the gentle silence that follows a story well told. Let the weight of history settle softly around you, not as a burden, but as a deep and comforting blanket. Feel the tension in your shoulders begin to release, the thoughts of your day beginning to drift and dissolve like smoke in the evening air. You are safe now, far from the intrigues of the ancient world, resting in the calm and quiet of your own space. Allow your breathing to slow down, to find its own natural, peaceful rhythm. A gentle inhale, a long, slow exhale. Each breath is an anchor, holding you in this moment of perfect stillness. The journey is complete. You have walked through the corridors of power. You have stood on the stage in Greece, and you have fled into the darkness of the Roman countryside. Now, the time for walking is over. It is time to rest. Let the images of the past recede, replaced by a gentle, soothing darkness behind your eyes. This darkness is a safe harbor, a quiet haven where you can let go of everything. There are no more decisions to be made, no more challenges to face. There is only the simple, profound comfort of rest. May your dreams be peaceful, and your sleep be deep and restorative, carrying you gently through the night until a new day dawns. The end. Sweet dreams.